Ukrainian soldiers in Kursk region have lost ground in recent days, but they're not encircled by Russian forces, despite the recent comments by Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. The Institute for the Study of War has observed no geolocated evidence to indicate that Russian forces have encircled a significant number of Ukrainian forces in Kursk region or, in fact, anywhere else along the front line in Ukraine. The think tank is pointing out at another strategy that Moscow might be pursuing. The Kremlin continues to demand that Ukraine gives up its territory that Russia does not currently occupy, to set conditions to make further territorial demands and, therefore, attacks in those areas. Volodymyr Zelensky stated on the 18th of March that Russian forces are concentrating in Kursk region on the border with Ukraine's Sumy region and may be preparing new attacks on Sumy, Kharkiv and Zaporizhzhia regions. The Institute for the Study of War reports that Russian forces recently advanced in western Zaporizhzhia region amid intensified Russian offensive operations in the area, likely as part of efforts to leverage Russia's deliberate stalling of the temporary ceasefire proposal to make battlefield gains. Moscow troops are likely intensifying offensive operations in this area to push towards Zaporizhzhia city amid continued Kremlin demands that Ukraine cede all of its region to Russia, as the control of the Russia-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest one in Europe, has been actively discussed between Kyiv and Washington over the past couple of days.
O presidente russo Vladimir Putin está a jogar para ganhar tempo no campo de batalha, enquanto a Ucrânia está pronta para a paz. É esta a opinião de Manfred Weber, presidente do Partido Popular Europeu do centro-direita. Numa entrevista, horas antes do início da cimeira dos líderes europeus em Bruxelas, Weber disse que a administração Trump nos Estados Unidos está agora a perceber a realidade.
Well, the result is that there is no ceasefire. That's a result in this moment of time. There is no final agreement, and we don't know what really will happen in the next upcoming days on the battleground. And you can really see that Zelensky, the Ukrainians, are ready to go for peace, and Putin is playing. He wants to win time. He wants to win on the battleground. That's a reality. He has no interest to stop the war. Now also the American administration is now arriving in this reality that the war is not easy to be stopped because Putin has a clear plan, and that means to really conquer, to really occupy Ukraine.
Weber também reagiu à atual explosão da Europa na diplomacia telefónica entre os três líderes, afirmando que a Europa e a Ucrânia devem estar presentes na mesa das negociações.
Well, absolutely. Europe and Ukraine must be on the table, and America must understand there will be no agreement at all without the country of Ukraine. It's a sovereign country. They have their president, they have their parliament, they have national unity in defending themselves and their values, democracy and freedom. So that's why it's unthinkable.
No topo da agenda da cimeira desta quinta-feira estão os planos para rearmar a Europa, de forma a garantir que pode contar com as suas próprias forças armadas e poder militar em caso de agressão.
What I want to say is that we would save a lot of money if we would do things together. That's why the main initiative is now common procurement, do things together, invest in Europe, buy European, and we need some flagship projects where people immediately understand that as Europeans together, we are better protected. Look for cyber defense, where everybody understands that there is no national border anymore, or a missile defense system, a drones defense system. Let's do this on the Polish-Belarusian border for all Europe. Then we are better protected if we do it together.
A reunião dos líderes europeus abordará também a necessidade de aumentar a competitividade, a gestão da migração irregular e a situação no Médio Oriente, entre outros temas.
A líder da oposição ao regime de Minsk avisa que a Rússia pode mesmo atacar os países da NATO a partir do território da Bielorrússia. Em entrevista à Euronews, Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya diz que para evitar esse cenário, os interesses da Ucrânia não podem ser sacrificados agora.
I would perceive these threats very seriously. Because while Lukashenko is in power, Belarusian land can be used as launching pad for attack again on Ukraine or on our Western neighbors. You know, it's no problem for Lukashenko to serve to Putin and give our land and infrastructure, you know, for the invasion. Until regime is there, there will be constant threat to your security. We have to dismantle this regime to get rid of Lukashenko. Only in this case, Belarus will not be the source of constant blackmailing with migrants, a nuclear weapon or joint drills with the Russians.
Do you think the risk of the possible invasion from the territory of Belarus towards NATO members, the Baltic states, could be coming as quickly as this year?
Look, I can't predict this because dictators are irrational. I understand that all the countries who want peace in our region, including the USA, not to provide long-lasting peace, it would allow Russian troops to regroup, to strengthen itself and to start invasion or blackmail with the invasion in the nearest future. So on the fact how European Union together with hopefully the USA will act now, if they will not sacrifice with the Ukrainian territories or with Ukrainian interests, that will embolden Russians, so maybe it will not happen. But if solutions that we are taking now about Belarus, about Ukraine, that we are ready, to leave some territories under Russian influence, so it will show that the democratic world cannot answer decisively, that they accept that subjugation or invasion of other countries is possible, and they don't have instruments, to counter this. It might happen that they will knock to the doors of European Union.
Todos os anos, participantes de todo o mundo, incluindo ministros do setor da energia, reúnem-se no Diálogo de Berlim sobre transição energética na Alemanha, para discutir um processo global que se pretende seguro, acessível e ecológico. Em declarações à Euronews durante a cimeira deste ano, o vice-chanceler alemão cessante e ministro da Economia e da Proteção do Clima apelou aos políticos para colocarem a crise climática de novo na agenda.
Es muss doch möglich sein, dass eine Gesellschaft nicht nur durch Katastrophen lernt, sondern einfach auch durch Nachdenken, durch kognitive Anstrengung. Deswegen, die Lektionen sind alle da. Der Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue hat das nochmal aufgefächert. Sicherheit, Preise, Klimaneutralität, alles spricht dafür, dieses Thema jetzt nach vorne zu bringen und am Erfolg anzuknüpfen, auf dem Erfolg aufzubauen. Also beantworte ich es in einem Satz so: Es braucht Politikerinnen und Politiker, die wissen, was die Stunde geschlagen hat und es den Menschen der Öffentlichkeit immer wieder erklären. Und diese Menschen braucht es auch in den Medien, die immer wieder die richtigen Fragen stellen.
No que diz respeito à atual situação geopolítica, elogiou a liderança da Presidente da Comissão Europeia. No entanto, pediu uma reforma abrangente para garantir a unidade entre todo o bloco.
Also eigentlich braucht Europa eine echte Reform seiner Institutionen. Das Einstimmigkeitsprinzip muss überwunden werden. Wir brauchen Mehrheitsentscheidungen im Rat, auch in der Außen-, Sicherheits- und Finanzpolitik. Ich würde sagen, dass Europa eine eigene finanzpolitische Autonomie braucht, also selber die Möglichkeit hat, Geld einzunehmen. Und dann galt der amerikanische Spruch, no taxation without representation or legislation. Das heißt, es braucht dann irgendwann auch eine eigene Gesetzgebungskompetenz durch volles Mandat. Wir müssen uns also auf den Weg machen zu einer echten föderalen Europäischen Republik. Das heißt, die Kommission muss am Ende richtig gewählt werden, das Parlament muss ein echtes Parlament sein.
Robert Habeck demitiu-se da liderança dos verdes alemães após a derrota do partido nas eleições de fevereiro, mas apesar disso possibilitaram a aprovação de um importante pacote de medidas que incluíam um fundo especial de 100 mil milhões de euros para a proteção climática.
A Comissão Europeia quer criar um verdadeiro mercado único da defesa. É este o objetivo do livro branco que foi apresentado sobre o armamento da União até 2030. Atualmente o setor está muito fragmentado, com 5 Estados-membros a dominarem o mercado: França, Alemanha, Itália, Espanha e Suécia. Uma situação que conduz à duplicação de esforços.
We are producing very many very expensive products. But in the small numbers, and what we need is that the market is able to provide necessary numbers of ammunition, missiles, and different defense equipment, and that the countries can consolidate themselves together and buy together, and we need to give the opportunity for the small and medium-sized enterprises to operate on the market.
A União Europeia produz atualmente 4 vezes mais equipamento militar do que antes do conflito na Ucrânia, mas a Comissão quer uma melhor coordenação. Foram identificadas capacidades críticas que precisam de ser reforçadas, como a defesa aérea e antimíssil, sistemas de artilharia, munições e mísseis, drones e mobilidade militar. Para conseguir economias de escala, a Comissão está a propor aquisições agrupadas.
Today, the Germans buy Germans, the Spanish buy Spanish, the French, of course, only French equipment. We need to open the tenders of the countries to other nations' companies as well. It needs to give the possibility to the small countries to be integrated part of that all.
A Comissão pretende ainda reduzir a dependência dos 27 em relação ao equipamento militar norte-americano, propondo-se a incentivar as aquisições europeias a fim de reforçar a base industrial comum. Para isso é necessária uma vontade política a longo prazo.
The question is, will the member states who clearly are spooked by the international geopolitical situation, will they now really put the money there in a sustained effort? And if there were to be a ceasefire in Ukraine, would they sit back and say, okay, panic over? Or would they really go ahead? Because I think that's the fundamental question. We need European defence, and it takes a decade of effort, a decade of spending to get there.
Para financiar este esforço de defesa, a Comissão reiterou o seu plano de rearmamento, que deverá permitir gastar 800 mil milhões de euros no setor.